Early signing day is in the books, and for the first time in a long time, I think we can say from beginning to end, it was fun. Didn't have to talk ourselves into one thing to be excited about because guess what? It was just all organically exciting. And that's what we're going to talk about today on this episode of the Auburn Daily Show. We are joined, as always, with our guy, Pat Barnes, who has no hot takes to fight this week because there's just nothing. Well, I would say cold takes is use a freeze joke there, but you know what I'm getting at. There's no bad juju out there. If you're an Auburn fan base, I think some other fan bases are going through it right now. I got my hat on because it's cold out there. It's cold outside. I think it's cold everywhere. Why would you say that is?
I feel bad for our listeners, memes, because the Pat Barnes that you have come to know over the years has a lot spicier opinions than what I've brought to the table the last couple of months. That's just because things have been going well for Auburn generally, as far as the off the field stuff's been going, and feeling good about our future. And I would say that we just had the best national signing day that Auburn's had since the 2016 Derek Brown day. Would you agree?
Yeah, so I have a video of you because I was at your house, and for those out there who need to know this, there have been many eras of Pat Barnes, and what we were describing there, kind of teasing at, was that was the Harson Pat Barnes, the uh the
Well,
true
in
the
the Gus
true
Pat Barnes too was not a happy camper.
yeah, there was a vigilant Pat Barnes out there during those days. But the Derek Brown committing days, so the Pat Barnes who has always celebrated signing day is like as a holiday, either skipping school, taking off work. I mean, it was a true occasion, and I was with you one of those days when you took off work. Happened to be when Derek Brown signed. I think they did a live video of it on ESPN. And if I remember correctly, you jumped off the couch screaming.
I mean, it was a massive pickup. And hey, who was I right or was I right?
And I do want to add to the fact of you being right, because jumping off the couch and like screaming of jubilant, just like testosterone driven joy for Derek Brown signing aged incredibly well because Derek Brown lived up to all the hype and more, and love Derek Brown, absolute stud. And yeah, what was he? Was he at some 4, 6? What was his draft pick?
He was sixth overall, I think, sixth or seventh. The Carolina Panthers drafted him in the top 10 picks. I remember that. I think he
And
may have been
he
seventh.
Yeah, and he's top 10. I mean, yeah, it was no lower than that. Doing absolute work in Carolina, just like he did absolute work in Auburn, and so that was one 5 star. You had Owen Peppo, then you had Bo Nix, but guess what? This class right here loaded with them,
Yep.
and it just seemed like due to recent events, recent coaches, kind of there weren't a whole lot of rumors of 5 stars coming, and now the turnaround that Hugh Freeze has done in such a short time. And I want to say this. I would like to think that I went into this Hugh Freeze hire with I would say in my eyes, I try to win it with realistic expectations. I did not come into this with a overly bug. We're going to be competing for the playoffs. We're getting 9 or 10 wins year one. I didn't come into it with this, oh, this guy is washed. This was a bad hire mentality either. Mine was I try to keep it very middle of the road. And what I thought is like, okay, his the range I thought for this class would have been, and like I said, I try to keep my expectations just very moderate, was like maybe 17th at the worst, 12th at the best, within that range. Obviously, Auburn, and it's not done yet. I mean, you go to true signing day in February. Auburn is 6-7, depending upon the sites, and they still have a low number of guys. They are, I believe, fourth in average star ranking, which kind of leans to say if they add a few more 3 stars, they might bump up a spot or two. This is
Sixth
way
in average star rating.
sixth. I think they're
Yeah,
fourth. I think they're fourth
fourth
on
in the
on
SEC.
No, I think average star rating on three, they're fourth. Is it
Okay.
24/7? They're sixth.
Yeah, 24/7. They're sixth then.
Yeah, relative depending on where you look. Moral of the story: those are my expectations. Blew them out of the water. Blew them out of the water. If you had told me a year ago this is where we'd be right now, I'd probably accuse you of booging a little too hard. I'd say that's great. That'd be awesome. We're booging.
In fact, you did accuse me of booging a little too hard probably a year ago.
I probably did. I would have accused anybody. And if I did accuse you of booging too hard a year ago, I apologize. It's like one of those numbers you just happy to be wrong. I will happily be wrong on this. I did not think Auburn was going to land Cam Coleman. I didn't think they were going to flip or keep. I thought they'd keep him, but I was nervous about Perry Thompson. I'll tell you what, he gave us both a heart attack today.
He did. That was shifty on his part. I didn't appreciate that.
Yeah, no, I'm still kind of coming down from that one.
I had
And then,
flashbacks to T.J. Yeldon and Rashawn Evans there for about a half second.
well, I mean, that's what Bama did, and I think that's something that's fair to talk about. The second that Auburn was getting momentum, and I mean that they had a lot of that after that national championship that snuck up on them. They did everything they could to keep Auburn from getting high-profile players that could have absolutely kept the momentum running for Auburn. And I'll tell you what, right here, I mean, with the way that NIL is panning out, I mean, I really do think this is a big equalizer now, because the same 3 or 4 schools aren't able to keep the lion's share of the talent.
Right.
And I mean, you saw what happened with Nebraska. You have saw, I mean, obviously Alabama and Georgia are still cleaning up, but other teams are able to chip away at them, and that's going to start making these games more interesting. It won't just be every single game they play, but 1 or 2 a year is in a double-digit point spread. It is actually going to be close, exciting, fun games, and it will make the sport of college football better on the field standpoint when the talent pool is spread out amongst more programs. Because let's be honest, the super team era of the 2010s was fun for a year or two, and then it got really, really old. Patriots versus somebody, Golden State versus whatever team LeBron's on, Alabama versus Clemson. I mean, it was just, or Ohio State, insert. It was just boring.
Back half of the 2010s in college football, and I guess really even the first couple of years, all in the last year, it was, if you compare the fun and just the joy you had watching college football to what I experienced from 2000 to about 2013 in the BCS era, it wasn't even comparable. I mean, the college football playoffs to this point have been so boring to watch year after year. And that's because you knew it was always going to be Alabama, Clemson, Georgia, Ohio State, with what you just said, 80% of the talent. And then you would get your occasional LSU with a generational couple players, or a team like that would sneak in there. But NIL, you're right, it's been the great equalizer. And it's not necessarily to say that all the teams are equal now, but as opposed to being the top 4 teams getting everything, you've got a pool of about 20 teams that have resources to compete like this, that the talent is starting to spread out amongst. And you're seeing that in the rankings right now. You got Texas and Washington in there. Michigan, Michigan is a blue blood program, but in terms of the last 15 years, they weren't a traditional power. I mean, Harbaugh's kind of had to build that thing from the ground up. So it's just, college football has been a lot more fun this year than it has in, honestly, the decade before it. And I think you're right. A lot of it is NIL and transfer portal.
Well, amateurism, as we remembered it, your daddy's amateurism is dead. And that is just something that we're going to have to kind of just accept. And we're going to have to find ways to evolve the game to kind of keep the pure essence of it there, and just understanding that things are going to be different. And this is a new generation of kids, and their values and what they see and different things are going to be different as well. And that's just going to be the evolution of it, because the days of kids go into a school because they grew up watching a player, or they grew up and they were a fan, or whatever. I mean, that's just not how it works anymore. I mean, there's so much more business to it, because there's so much more money in football at all levels. And whether it be fun money, whether it be generational changing money, whatever it is to these kids, it doesn't matter. It's none of our business.
There's two factors.
There's
2 factors that I won't say every player, two factors that the vast majority of players care about above everything else. One, how much money am I going to get paid to come here? Two, how fast are you going to get me to the NFL, and how high is my draft pick going to be? Those two things matter way more to the vast majority of players than any other factor, as far as like what's your school tradition, how many championships are we going to win while you're there? Those things matter, but they don't matter nearly as much as how are you going to get me to the NFL? How much money am I going to make here?
Right. When NIL opportunities and NFL coaching pedigrees are all equal, then you get to the feel of the campus, the traditions, the fun, the fans, all that, all those intangibles.
Right.
And I mean, that stuff is still at play, of course. I mean, you're still seeing the recruiting happen the way that it is, but these conversations that otherwise were not being had are now able to be had a little bit more in a little bit different ways than pre-NIL era. And you're seeing some changes. And obviously, Auburn is in a situation with what they've been doing with On to Victory to put themselves in these opportunities, because guys now have the chance to come to Auburn, and being a top program in the country, from history, from current events, from facilities, from money, whatever your parameter is, Auburn is a top program in the country that can compete with anybody in the country. Now you're finally starting to see the players there to do it, because there's enough, we're going to go back to this word here, alignment, to make
Right.
all of those things happen. Just getting all the dominoes that Auburn has and getting them lined up and just flicking them. And here we are. And this is what it looks like here. And they're not done yet. I mean, they obviously, this thing can roll into February. There could still be some transfers that can get up onto this. So
there's two other players that we know about that would have a significant impact on Auburn's class if they chose to sign with Auburn by the time early February rolls around.
This is big time. So let's
we can talk about those guys at this point. I think they're both out there in the open. It's Cohen Eccles, the guard from Texas, and then obviously Ryan Williams, the newly reclassified stud receiver out of Saraland.
Yeah, and let's say this, Ryan Williams was at the basketball game this past weekend, which was absolutely electric. Not not every school in the state of Alabama can actually tout an electric basketball atmosphere. That would be a great place to take recruits to. So that's a really exciting thing to have. And not only that, it's really exciting to have a coach that takes advantage of such things.
You can do that?
You could. Not every coach that has coached at Auburn knew that.
Yeah, somebody needs to let people from Idaho know about that.
There once was a time where Auburn was ranked number 1 in basketball, playing an electric matchup with Kentucky. That would have been a really good, easy, low-hanging fruit of an activity to take recruits to, and be like, hey, check out how awesome this place is. And just that one, that was not on the radar. But the good news is recruits are there. Hugh Freeze was at the game. He was the celebrity letter holder. And there were not only recruits there, now signees. There were lots of guys on the team. I will say Jalen Simpson is an incredible heckler. It was really, really funny seeing him. He was holding up this awesome plankton sign, Auburn Eyes plankton sign. And yeah, he was Jalen Simpson was jawing some USC guys. He's a very funny guy. But point of it being is that is the type of atmosphere, that is the type of culture that's going to keep this thing rolling. And as we mentioned, the NFL prospects are important. The NIL opportunities are important too, but just good old-fashioned culture is still at play here. And as I said earlier, alignment across the board, because we saw what happened with Texas A&M. They had the funds to make all these things happen. Jimbo Fisher and Texas A&M had gotten guys to the NFL, but obviously there were some other missing links there, and that number 1 best recruiting class ever didn't pan out for them. And a lot of those guys have all just dipped out of the program. And obviously Jimbo Fisher and staff are gone too. So,
right.
Not to be confused, it's not all about the top of the pyramid. You still have to have a good foundation, but I think we can feel pretty good that Hugh Freeze staff, the players, everybody, the boosters, the fans are doing their part to make that foundation strong
Right.
and rock solid. And we're seeing the results of that now. It's got to come on the field, but it's rolling. And like I said, this is, I want you to finish the sentence. This has been, I'm just going to say signing day because I mean, this early sign, it should be signing day and late signing day. I'm sick of this early signing day and signing day, but semantics. Finish the sentence. This has been the most fun signing day since blank.
Since I would say 2016 when we got Derek Brown.
Okay,
And
before
that's really 2015 was pretty fun too.
Yeah, rough up. I mean, 2015 season.
Yeah, but that 2015 signing class is when we got. I mean, it was like Byron Cowart, Jeff Holland, Ryan Davis, Javaris Davis.
That was the
Denson.
that was when Muschamp came
Yeah.
back on the scene and came in hot.
My boy Muschamp just stocked the defensive roster for 4 years straight with one recruiting class.
That he did. So, but moral of the story, for the last 7-ish years, we were, and I hate to say this, but I think we can say this now, like it doesn't have to hurt anymore. We don't have to look back and like talk ourselves into the signing class.
Right. And the biggest difference here, if you look at just raw numbers of our recruiting class, Gus had some recruiting classes where he would finish low top tens, high 11, 12, 8, 9. But the big difference in the one we got today is every single one of these guys, outside of maybe 3 or 4, were guys that we beat out our main rivals for. And we've got 8 top 150 players. I don't remember Gus getting a signing class like that from 2017 to 2020. He had, I think 2014, 2015, maybe 2016, that signing classes were close to that. But I think this one is ranked even better than those. Maybe 2015 is close to it. But I think this is probably the best. It's just far as pure talent in the signing class. I think this may be the best one that I've seen at Auburn.
Well, that proves your point because Gus, and I'm going to use this is not a specific example, just kind of a hyperbole here, but there'd be like a high 4-star guy that would make Gus's class look good on paper, but when you look at it, it was like we beat out Texas Tech for him.
Right.
And then you're kind of looking there, and it was like the blue chips of college football weren't really after this guy. Like he was highly ranked, but the recruiting site had him highly ranked. Like that doesn't matter. Recruiting sites aren't coaching guys. Like so, yeah. I mean that's kind of the point you've said here and proved many times. Where you look at this one and you see, okay, Cam Coleman, Texas A&M, Perry Thompson, Alabama, Riddick, Georgia. Williams, Florida. Joseph Phillips, where was he?
Georgia wanted him bad.
Georgia as well.
Yeah.
That's right, guys. He came on early. That was Georgia. And then I'm looking at on threes order here. Let me go back down here. Waller, obviously Florida. Walker White, Clemson. And I'm gonna do last one here. DeAndre Carter. Where was he looking at?
Texas.
There we go. So
yeah, those are your top eight players right there, and every single one of those guys we beat out one of the big dogs for, at least one of the big dogs for.
So you're beating out playoff contending teams for players, and when you beat off playoff contending teams for players, you have playoff talent, which goes to show you will probably be in the playoffs soon. It's funny how that works. So yeah, I mean, this is something that we can really feel excited about. It looks like a good class. It looks like a balanced class. And let's get into this topic here because I know this is something kind of worth talking about. So there's been some chatter here, and Hugh Freeze said it in his press conference. I would encourage anybody out there who's on this episode who hasn't listened to this press conference, go listen to Hugh Freeze's press conference he did on signing day. It's very telling. So he kind of even admitted that we went all in. We went a little bit heavier on the high school guys versus the portal guys. Insert reasons here or there. But, Pat, let's have a discussion about that because I know we got some feelings about this.
Okay.
So, high school versus portal, because the portal has been romanticized as of late. But it seems to be that Hugh and staff tried to keep it old-fashioned and stick strong in the high school. And as we're recording right now, I believe they only have 2 portal commitments. Is that right?
3. We got a third one today.
Third one today. Okay, so go over our portal commitments we have so far. It is
We got Robert Lewis, the receiver from Georgia State. We've talked about him.
Yep.
Over the weekend, we got a defensive lineman from Kansas. He started at Minnesota, transferred to Kansas. His name is Gage Keys. I think he's going to probably be a more of a rotational piece than a frontline starter at defensive tackle, but we'll see.
But last guy we got from Kansas turned out pretty well, right?
He did. I don't think this guy's going to be that good, but I hope he ends up being just as good.
Right. I'm just, wishful thinking. And our last guy that we got this past weekend.
I may be mispronouncing his last name. We got him today, actually. His name is Dorian.
Today, sorry.
Yeah, Dorian Mousey, who's a linebacker from Duke. He's played a lot of football, and I think he's got like 160 something tackles. I really think, we were recruiting the guy from Georgia. I think his name is Jamon Dumars Johnson. Is that his name? I thought that was going to be a tall task because I disagree with some people on this. I think, especially Keys, looked pretty good to me most of the year when he was in the game. And I have learned on the message boards that people don't agree with me on that sentiment. I think a lot of people are going to be pleased when he's fully healthy next year. We kind of brought in Mousey to be the third linebacker in the rotation, kind of let Riddick and Phillips and Barber get their feet wet throughout the year to kind of be ready to be in more starring roles in the coming years.
Right. So why? So I want to do an exercise here. Why do you think it will be a good thing that we went high school heavy? And then why do you think it could be a bad thing we went too high school heavy? I want you to play devil's advocate with yourself.
The good thing about going to high school heavy is I just think that's how you build a successful winning program. And I think Alabama and Georgia and Ohio State and these other schools have proven that throughout the years. And I think since the transfer portal has become a thing, maybe I'm missing somebody. I can't recall a heavy transfer portal laden team winning it so far or even getting really far in the playoffs. Is there somebody that I'm just missing off the top of my head?
I cannot think of anybody, that was transfer heavy that really made a big. I mean, your teams that have been in the playoffs have gotten some top end talent from the playoff, but it wasn't like,
So I think, and that's where I was going with this. I think the formula you're seeing with the teams that are making it to the playoffs are they're using their homegrown talent to get far, and what they're doing is they're cherry picking about 4 or 5 guys out of the portal. And some of those are starters, some of that. Right.
But when you're a top tier program, you can cherry pick who you want.
Right. But that's what I'm saying. These top tier programs are all guys that have developed their own talent they recruited out of high school. Right. So I think the facts to this point have just come to show that these top tier programs aren't just picking and choosing all the best players out of the portal to make some type of super team conglomeration. I think Freeze is making the right call by choosing to go this direction. Now, far as
devil's advocate, why it would be a bad thing?
The bad thing is that all the odds are about 50% of this recruiting class is not going to pan out the way we think they should pan out based off their rankings. And if you look at it historically, I think that's a pretty fair representation of high school players that pan out versus ones that don't pan out. Is about 50% of your players end up doing what you think they're going to do. So the problem with that is when you rely heavy on freshmen, which we have this year, there's probably going to be more true freshmen that play for us next year. And the simple fact of the matter is a lot of these kids, even though they're highly ranked, are not going to be ready to get on a college football field their very first year of the program. I think if you're looking at 50%, a lot of people are probably expecting Cam Coleman and Perry Thompson to come in and be starters, set the world on fire next year. History and odds say that only one of those guys is going to be somebody that's really effective in the SEC, at least next year. So that you're at the point where you're relying on these inexperienced freshmen to provide a ton of valuable minutes for you. And that could cause you to suffer in the short term. So if we get to that point next year where we've got a bunch of these true freshmen that are playing tons of minutes, try to be patient with these guys. We're going to be working through some freshman yips, I guess you could call it. Kind of like Keldrick Falk this past year. You know, he started off slow the first half of the year, didn't really pop much. Second half of the year, he started really coming on when he got the feel of the game. If we got a lot of freshmen playing next year, that's probably the same type of deal you're going to see this coming year.
Now, we're gonna do an exercise here, and this is gonna kind of correlate into our ad read here. What coach probably needs to go to Opelika Rage Room after today?
Sunbelt Billy, as you like to call him.
I would say, and I know Billy Napier's a big fan of the show, listens often. Just shoot me a DM. I will talk to some people. We'll get you into the Opelika Rage Room, because let me tell you, buddy, you need it. If I remember right, at least a week or two ago, you had the top 3 or 4 recruiting class in the country. I think you've now dropped down to 16th or 17th by most ranking standards. That's got to be tough. We'd even made this joke last week about him needing to come to the Rage Room due to how tough their schedule is. And I mean, hate to say it, the jokes keep writing themselves, but woo, buddy, it is rough down in Florida. So if you are out there and your team had a bad signing day, you lost some flips, which Auburn didn't do. You know what? A Rage Room is a great place to go. You need to break some stuff because recruiting signing day didn't go your way. Check out Opelika Rage Room if you're in the Auburn, Alabama area. If you really thought if you're an Alabama fan, which may not be listening to the show, but if you're an Alabama fan, and they're down bad because a lot of them really did in their heart of hearts believe that Perry Thompson was flipping back to Alabama, and there were a lot of them that were tweeting through it today. Say, don't tweet through it. Just go to the Rage Room. You know what? There's a location in Birmingham too. Birmingham Rage Room. A lot of Bambers in Birmingham. Don't tweet about it right now. Just go to the Rage Room. If you're a Bama fan and you're sad that Auburn is so back right now, maybe go check out a Rage Room. That's a really good place to just get that out, because like this is probably going to lead to things that will really make you need a Rage Room before too long. But locations in Birmingham and Opelika, check out their website to book a reservation, rather than be in Birmingham, birminghamrageroom.com, or Opelika, opelika.com. Both are tons of fun. All the information is on there. And you know what? Maybe if you're an Auburn fan and you're like, I don't have a ounce of rage in my body right now after how today went, but you're just so pumped. Maybe that just excited energy, you can go get it out there too. It doesn't always have to be an anger thing. It can just be I'm so pumped I want to break something, and that's a very fair way to do it as well. So I want to thank them as always for sponsoring the show, and of course, Billy, if you're out there listening, we feel you. We know it had been a rough day for you. So yes, Auburn did not lose any flips. Billy lost quite. Yeah. Don't know what you're going through. But I want to ask you another question here, Pat. I think there's a bit of a lot of attention, which rightfully deserved, at the top of this class. Could you give us some guys that maybe you're kind of in the middle or even the lower side of this class that may not be getting enough attention, but are some guys that maybe we need to circle and say, this guy might not be getting the attention that he deserves?
How about I'll give you 3 names that I really like that are kind of on the bottom half of the class. I like Bryce Kane. Well, I'll give you 4 names because I think there's really 4 guys that pop out to me. Bryce Kane and Malcolm Simmons, who are our 2 less heralded receivers that we have to go along with Perry and Cam. Malcolm Simmons, I think, is about 6', 6'1", 180 pounds. He's a do-it-all athlete. He's got crazy vertical, catches everything that's thrown his way. He does a ton of damage on screens. I think he's going to start out at outside receiver for us. But I mean, if Thompson and Coleman and Kane and possibly Williams, if we get him, if they all come in and blow it up, I think you could see Simmons switch over to the defensive backfield, and I think he'd do really well there too. He's one. You got Bryce Kane out of a Baker Mobile, who we've talked about a bunch. He's an electric slot type receiver. He's going to do some damage in the future. The other 2 guys that I really like that we haven't talked about as much is the first one is actually Marcus Harris's little brother. His name is Malik Blockton. He's a defensive lineman out of Pike Road. And I think right now he's about 6'4", 280. He's probably somebody that's going to grow into a 3-technique defensive tackle, kind of like Marcus Harris did. He's got a lot of pop and explosiveness when you watch him. Everybody that can comprehend high school football film more than I can. Really likes what they see out of the kid. They say he's got really advanced hands this stage of his career. So I think we've got somebody who's going to be really good a couple years down the line in Blockton. And then the last guy that I really like is the linebacker from Clay Chalkville, D'Angelo Barber. It sounds like this guy is your prototypical middle linebacker, kind of in the mold of KJ Britt when he was here at Auburn, where KJ was kind of that fringe 3-star, 4-star player, but he would just stick his nose in the line, played aggressive, smart football player, would come down full speed and just hit you in the mouth right at the line of scrimmage. Sounds like Barber's that same type of linebacker. So those are some of the less heralded guys we got that I'm really excited to see at some point in the future.
Yeah, and I also want to kind of give a little shout out here, just out of principle only, but Caleb Harris.
Yeah.
Solely because you just got a guy out of Thompson. And ever since Thompson just somehow struck oil, I guess, Alabaster, Alabama's big oil country, and got like a 60-something million dollar school with like a community, like a borderline like group of 5 size football facility. Just insane. And then, right after that,
do you remember how tiny and a joke Thompson's athletic facilities were when we were in high school?
Yeah. So background, Pat and I are from the over the mountain area in Birmingham. We'll just leave it at that. And Thompson was like that was like the pay game version in high school. Like
you would go there.
It was like a win.
You would just skull drag whatever athletic team they rolled out there.
Yeah, it was like that was like if you even went to that game, you're leaving at halftime because how boring it was. The kids who suck are playing in that game. Then all of a sudden, they're pumping out 4 and 5 stars to Tuscaloosa left and right. I'm not trying to connect any dots. I'm not trying to wear a tinfoil hat here, but it was very, very suspect how that just came out of nowhere. Maybe Hoover High School sent one too many guys to Auburn, and that plug had to get pulled. Same deal with Prattville. And now, I mean, it seemed like Thompson's doing their thing. But yeah, they finally get a guy. And there had been guys that had been linked to Auburn from Thompson for years that for just one reason or another never made it to Auburn. And like that kid, remember that? Do what?
The fix was in, I guess.
Remember that kid who was the lineman a year or two ago whose car he couldn't visit Auburn because his car broke down?
Yeah, that was one of my favorite Harsin stories. They were like, "This kid's gonna make it eventually, I promise." Like, oh, his car broke down. And he just never showed up to Auburn again.
Nobody could find like Harsin took a Tahoe all the way back to Boise, Idaho, but we couldn't find a way to.
Yeah. Kept tabs on that Tahoe. We couldn't figure out where Stanton Ramel was, though.
We couldn't find a way to get this kid from Thompson. It was, just incredible times. So, needless to say, feeling good about the class. And of course, it's not over. There is regular signing day that will be coming up. So, expect them to hopefully top off this class even more. And at this point, I think it is going to be all eyes on the portal guys. And I'm going to say this too, and a huge thing, and Hugh Freeze did mention this in the press conference, but I believe he said half or over half of this class is going to be available to be practicing in the springtime.
Yep. Hey, I think DeMarcus Riddick and somebody else was already out there practicing the other day. Blockton and Riddick were already practicing with the football team.
Right. And I don't know if that does that mean they can practice but can't play in the bowl? I don't know. Not that they would, but
they can't play in the bowl game.
Okay, I was like, I didn't know where that gray area was in the rule. But yeah, I mean, the fact that they're already out there, and the key thing with this is it's not just the practice, but shout out to my folks that are nutrition and dietetics, just bulking guys up, getting them on a collegiate level diet plan. I mean, not trying to hate on some of these high school kids, but if you've ever been around a big high school kid, most of them don't know how to eat properly. There's a reason that the people that are feeding these guys and giving them diet plans have master's degrees.
Right.
So getting them in there early saying, hey, you need to eat these kind of calories. You need to take these types of vitamins. You need to be drinking these protein shakes at this time of the day to get your weight here, your muscle here, your body fat here. I mean, it is like human engineering with how intense that they can get these guys from just a pure diet standpoint. And that's not even including what they do in the weight room, the playbook, practice, anything like that. So the fact that they can be ahead of this stuff, nearly what are we now here? 9-10 months before the season starts. That is going to be massive because, as we said earlier, we're probably going to be leaning on a few of these true freshmen to get going. So I got 2 more things I want to get to this episode before we wrap it up. I want to ask you this question here.
Okay, let's hear it.
Which guys do you think will be playing? Significant might be a strong word, but what are guys that we're going to see probably be getting some snaps this upcoming season? Who's some guys to look out for?
I left out a huge one on the back half of the class, and this probably because I don't
late.
consider him a back half player. But Laquan Robinson, I think, has got a good shot to start at safety this year.
Okay.
He was a really physical safety out of high school, and I think maybe in Greenville, Alabama, he's from.
He's already listed as 6'2", almost 200 pounds, so he's got the size already.
And the book on him was that he would have been a higher ranked player in high school, but he was one of those guys whose grades were so bad they knew he was going straight JUCO. So I don't think anybody spent a bunch of time rating him properly. But if you believe the rumors, Kiffin tried to flip him early this morning or late yesterday, and was unsuccessful in doing it. So this is a guy that I think is gonna maybe start for us right off the bat. So he'd be one. I think either Coleman or Thompson is going to start at that outside receiver spot. I lean Coleman because he's going to be here in the spring. He's going to have a kind of a leg up in practice, but Thompson's a freak too. He can end up taking that spot from him if he shows up ready to roll.
They had the 100-yard foot race. Looks like Perry had him beat by a step.
Yeah, it did look like that. It was tough to tell, but it did look like that.
Yeah, I think Malcolm Simmons might need. We might need to help Malcolm Simmons' cameraman skills.
Yeah, I'm with you.
So I think
the other 2 guys that I think are going to play a good bit of minutes next year are DeMarcus Riddick, because it sounds like he's already kind of showing out in practice at linebacker, and I think he's probably going to be the 4th linebacker next year. So I'm excited to see him. He's one of our more highly rated guys, and got him from Georgia. And then the last guy I think is going to play a good bit of snaps is Jamonte Waller at that jack linebacker spot. Unless we bring somebody else in the transfer portal, Waller is probably going to either be the 2nd or 3rd jack up. And I'm trying to remember who our jacks were this year. It was McAllister and McLeod, right? Was there a 3rd jack that played at all?
Oh, she's on my depth chart in front of me.
I don't think he did, but I think you're going to see 3 jacks play more than 2 jacks did this year. So I bet Jamonte Waller gets a good amount of snaps at that jack linebacker. He won't start. McLeod's entrenched there, I think, is the starter, and maybe we bring in a transfer. And I think there's also a possibility we move Cam Riley over into that spot. But
all right, I'm going to get you a little buy sell here, not including kneel downs. Do you think Walker White gets more or less than 10 snaps this year?
Wait, I'm taking the under big time.
So you don't think he plays at all?
No, I think White's got a bright future at Auburn, but to me, he's the type of quarterback that's going to need a couple years getting acclimated to the speed of the game, kind of like Gurner should have. I don't think Gurner probably ever should have gotten those snaps he got in the couple games he's gotten in his career. So I think White's going to be on that kind of that Aaron Rodgers, Jordan Love, Green Bay plan where you're got him in incubation for a couple years, getting him ready for the limelight.
All right. Assuming Auburn does not bring in a transfer quarterback, you think Hank Brown has over or under 10 passes?
Under. I think Gurner's going to get those snaps.
Okay. That is what I need to know. All right. Any other players on this recruiting class thus far who you think this guy might be a sleeper for passes? And then we got one last subject matter to cap us off.
I don't know what to make of Joe Phillips. He's a really highly ranked player, and I know SEC teams loved him. Georgia wanted him bad. I don't really, and when I say I don't know what to make of him, I don't know if he fits in at jack or off-ball linebacker. But everybody says he's an incredible athlete. He's got a great nose for the football. So if he does get on the field, I'm sure he will perform well. And I just don't know where that's going to be yet.
Is he coming in the springtime?
He's the 3rd one that's practicing right now, actually.
Oh, he's already practicing. Well, there you go.
Yeah, he's already out there with them. And he's been playing middle linebacker, I think, so far.
Big time. All right, well, let's get to our Let's get to my favorite recruit signee. Preferred walk-on wide receiver from Phoenix City, Cam Coleman's best friend, Dylan, I guess Gentry.
Why do you like him so much, man?
There's a level of swagger that we have not seen at Auburn in quite some time. And I think Dylan is bringing this. I think he's bringing this to Auburn. I want to shout out the College Loop for just getting this graphic out there for the world. And I mean, this is awesome. He got the me versus me. It looks like he's got some grills on. He's got this Island Boys hairstyle going on. He's kind of got the flat bill with a little bit of a cock to it. Mean mugging the camera. Dylan has a moxie that I think could be contagious on this team.
Yeah.
And I mean the wide. I'm gonna call a spade here. The wide receiver room this past year and the year before that, and the year before that has not had the mojo. Am I wrong?
They've lacked the confidence that this kid so obviously has.
Just being there at practice, scout team, whatever, in the room, Dylan's bringing it. I'm happy he's a part of this team. I love the idea of the preferred walk-ons because the walk-ons don't get enough love. And you know what? I'm calling it right now. Dylan is the next Will Hastings. Welcome to the team, Dylan. Let's bring it home again. Be a little speedster. And you know what? Connect with your Jarrett Stidham. Remember, Will Hastings, Jarrett Stidham. It was just an unmatched connection, and it made 2017 special.
That's what we were telling our Bama friends earlier, memes. Is I can't wait till Dylan Gentry gives you the Hunter Renfrow treatment in the Iron Bowl in a couple of years, and see what their reaction to that is.
They're not ready for it. No, they are not ready for it. I'm looking forward to his game day piece when he earns a scholarship. And they do like the interview because there's always one of those a year. We got the walk on who earned his stripes, Auburn joke, and then he gets a scholarship, and they kind of do a little life story. But no, this kid's awesome. I'm happy he is on the team. Glad he got the shout out from the College Loop. According to you, said him and Cam Coleman are boys, are roommates. Is that what we're hearing?
I read that they're best friends apparently.
Hey, you know what? I mean, Phoenix City won state, so this Dylan has a ring. So, and I mean, the thing about it is like, I mean, you're playing in Cam Coleman's shadow, and that's not anything to take away from him. Cam Coleman is literally one of the best wide receivers in the country. So, like, it just is kind of the nature of the beast. But look, if you're a preferred walk on at any SEC school, you're really, really good. I think people kind of think like, oh, walk on, I could be a walk. Like, no, absolutely not. Like, don't even go there. These guys are absolute studs. So, yes, excited to see what he's going to do for Auburn. Pat, that's going to close us out for this episode of the most jubilant early signing day that we've had in nearly a decade. I know you're feeling good. You weren't able to take off work today for this one, were you?
No, I worked today, but it's Christmas time, so I was able to pay attention.
Yeah, we were able to check it out. I had a busy day, but I was still keeping an eye on things. It went great. It's not over. And we're gonna keep it going. I think we'll have a lot of good stuff. It is bowl season. It looks like Tulia Tungavaloa is opting out of the game. So that is just going to make this absolutely wild. I went absolutely viral for an incredible Bama troll of saying that he was scared to play Auburn just like his brother. And
I missed that. That's pretty good.
Bama fans went absolutely bananas over that tweet. And then I just doubled down on it, and they couldn't handle themselves. So it's like, they're just so easy. They're just so easy.
That's a pretty good one.
So we just went for it. So, but that's going to wrap us up for today's episode of the Auburn Daily Show. Make sure to check us out on YouTube, like, subscribe, more content rolling out there. Of course, on the podcast, hit the like, follow, subscribe button, whatever it is. Leave a review. Of course, leave a comment. Tell us which player you are excited to see coming to the Plains this upcoming year. And hey, you know what? It feels good. We don't have to talk ourselves into anything. It's just going to happen. They did the thing. And you know what? If you like where this momentum's going and you don't already, hey, go to ontovictory.com. This is just a free shout out. There's no sponsorships here. If you got a little extra money, help out On to Victory, because that is most definitely going to help keep the good times rolling. That is all we got. Ooh, I kind of yelled there. That is all we got for the show. This is your host, Alex, better known on the socials as at Auburn Memes. That's where you can find me. If you like trolling, especially trolling Bama fans right now, really good follow for that content. You can't find out where Pat Barnes is. He is a man of mystery. Batman does not reveal who he really is. But of course, you can check him out every week on this show here. Want to thank him as always for joining. We will be back with more content as it keeps rolling. And we look forward to it. And thank you for listening to the show.